I am so excited to share that you can now watch all of my upcoming podcasts on my brand new YouTube channel for the What Now podcast. So many of you have asked for more video content, and now you can watch these powerful conversations face to face. Every story, every testimony, every moment of faith and resilience, you'll now find it all on YouTube. So I'll be posting more of my episodes there, along with new short clips and deeper insights to help strengthen your faith and remind you that you are never alone on this journey. I invite you to subscribe on my YouTube channel at Podcast What Now. That's at Podcast What Now, so you never miss an episode.
This is the What Now podcast.
In this episode of the What Now podcast, I sit down with Brett Stewart, co-founder of Millennial Choirs and Orchestras, to talk about the incredible faith journey behind one of the largest sacred music organizations in the nation. Brett shares how his musical roots, shaped by devoted parents and years of training, inspired a lifelong mission to bring people closer to God through song. He opens up about the founding of MCO, the miracles behind its growth, and how music continues to heal hearts and connect heaven to earth. From conducting life-changing performances to reflecting on the role of music and worship, Brett reminds us that sacred music isn't just art, it's revelation, worship, and testimony in motion. If you've ever felt moved by a hymn or inspired by music that lifts your soul, this episode will deepen your appreciation for how faith and melody can unite people across every background and belief.
This is the What Now podcast.
Today I'm here with Brett Stewart. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you join me today on the podcast. Thank you. But before we begin, can you just share a little bit about yourself so our listeners can get to know you better?
Absolutely, Mary Allison. Thanks for having me on. Super excited to chat with you today. I'm Brett Stewart. I am supposed that I'm here because I'm one of the founders of Millennial Choirs and Orchestras. People call it MCO. It's Millennial Choirs and Orchestras. It's something my brother and me started, 18 years ago now. So it's been a while. And but a little bit about my background. I actually will go backwards. I currently live in Texas, in North Texas, north of Dallas-Fort Worth. And I have 7 kids and a beautiful wife, Mindy. And actually 4 of my kids are now out of the house. I don't know that I'd call them adults yet, but they're that age. And I have 3 at home now. So our house is a little bit quieter than it used to be. And but my brother and me, my family was raised in Orange County. We were raised in the Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley area. And so our hearts are always in lots of places with these places that we've moved to. My brother's now in Arizona, and I'm obviously here in Texas. But we go back to Orange County all the time. Our parents all still live there, and we have siblings there still, and just absolutely love it. And we just grew up very musical, which I'm sure we'll get into maybe a little bit later, but very, very musical family.
Okay, so I applaud you for having 7 children. That is amazing. And are they all musical?
You know what? My wife is an athlete, very athletic, and our kids all kind of chose that route. They all are musical. They all have great ears, and they've taken piano lessons here and there, and they've all sung in MCO. There's requisite in our family to sing in dad's choirs. So yes, yeah, that's right. So yes, they all sing and those kinds of things, but none of them have chosen it as a career path. And I currently have a son on a mission, ironically in California, where half of his life he was raised. But he's on a mission there, and he keeps telling me that he's kind of caught the music bug. Like all of a sudden now he's, what does it take to do this, to do music? And I'm going, well, you're a day late and a dollar short, kid. But anyway, but I love it. I've learned, Mindy and me learned to love the things that we love, that the other loves, and we're game for pretty much anything. We just love to have a great time. And so I've loved all the athletic events, and I try not to ever miss anything. I love watching my kids like any parent. And, but no, I would not say that my kids do music. Definitely not in the way my brother and me and my siblings did. So.
Well, it's interesting. So you and your brother grew up in Orange County. You both extensively studied music, your brother being proficient in piano performance and you with a PhD in choral conducting. And now you're both leading a movement of 6,000 musicians nationwide. I mean, what first sparked your love of music and convinced you that this was going to be your calling in life?
I think it was just the uniqueness of the level at which we were required to study. And I say required because we had particularly our mother who just kind of saw that there was a talent that, you know, I don't know how to say this without sounding egotistical, but you can kind of see in a kid, and you do with this with athletics and music and art, just all different things. You look at your kid and say, there's something there that is extra. Let's just put it that way. And I think my mom saw something extra in some of her kids. And so she really pushed the music. And a couple of my sisters, it was the same way. She really pushed the piano lessons, not just any piano lessons, but like the best teacher in Orange County that we could find, and classical training and competitions. And it was pretty hardcore in our home, the practicing. And there was always 2 pianos going 24/7 with practicing. And so, yeah, very, very musical upbringing. But even before that, we did a lot of singing in our home. Our mom and dad, both very musical. There was a lot of, singing around the piano growing up and harmonizing in the car and all road trips, things like that. And so it was just a huge, huge part of our lives, all the music.
Oh yeah. The sing along on every road trip.
Oh yeah. It was, and we all have ears. We can all harmonize, and we all, and my dad was a songwriter. I was going to say a composer, but I guess the more appropriate term would be songwriter. He wrote all kinds of pop songs, and he was in a band and those kinds of things. And, there are listeners who may know a little bit of our story, but when I'm speaking of all the musical stuff in that sense, I'm speaking of our biological father who's since passed, but my parents divorced when we were all very young. So I had this wonderful world of a biological father who gave all these wonderful musical genes along with my mother, and then a stepfather who we call dad, who raised us pretty much from the time we were, older kids through our teenage years, who provided all of the support and the cheerleading and just immense amount of respect for that. So anyway, we were really, really blessed to have a situation where we got kind of a second chance at life. And parents who just were gung-ho with this. They could just see the talent, and they were like, we're doing this, poured their money, their resources, everything into it. And there wasn't much, but they just gave it all so that we could have what we have. So I credit that as one of the reasons MCO exists.
I mean, it is true. I mean, if you see that kind of potential in your kids and you have the ability to foster that, it's amazing that they saw that and they fostered that in you and your other siblings who had the skill. My mom's a professional opera singer. I didn't get that skill, and I was raised with music and all of that. And really, we had to perform at her Christmas parties every year. I mean, we were trained up, but I just didn't have the gift. So you either have it or you don't. But if you do have it, you can really do something with it. I know her parents noticed it in her when she was very young, and she was on a radio show with Shirley Temple when she was, 8 years old. And my mom's 84 now. So, I mean, and that just launched her. So it's interesting. Some people really do have that gift at a young age. And it sounds like you had that. So,
yeah, that's true. And you're right about the parents. There's a sixth sense with parents. You get, we joke about the stage moms of the world and those kinds of things. And it really does exist. But there's a sixth sense there. As a parent, you look at your kid and go, first of all, do they have it? And second of all, do they have the motivation to do something with it? And,
right.
Some of us did and some of us didn't, but my mom knew how to kind of drive that and create the motivation if she saw there was potential there. So it's incredibly tricky formula there, but it worked. It worked for us.
Well, what I love about music and what I experienced as a child, being very exposed to music and classical music particularly, but it's very vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, we connect. I mean, how has music personally broken down barriers in your own life?
It's very vulnerable. I love that concept. And I've watched that with thousands there have been tens of thousands of participants and audience go through Millennial Choirs and Orchestras in the past almost 20 years now. And I have watched I have seen it in my own life, but it's almost more evident when you're watching it affect others' lives. When you're watching your music or something that you've created or something that you're providing, and seeing it just completely, pierce the hearts of the participants, of the audience. So I am blessed that I am able to see that on a regular basis. Weekly rehearsals for 18 years in this organization, dozens and dozens and dozens of concerts throughout the United States, watching the audiences, hearing their reactions, getting the feedback. It's been really, really humbling. It's a super, super humbling thing to be a part of, to witness people's lives change. There's been super tender experiences that I wouldn't even feel comfortable sharing. Just people, part of the vulnerability, and the phrase vulnerability begets vulnerability. Because you present this vulnerable art form from your heart, people will just share their life stories with you. And that's why I say I'm not even comfortable without their permission sharing some of the things, but so deeply personal. People that are on the fringes in one way or another, even of their own lives, the worth of their own life, and how this just draws them right back to the Lord, and to the Spirit, and to things that connect them back to what really matters. And it's so cliche that music, this kind of music, can be life-changing, but it is. It's literally changed and saved countless lives that I'm aware of. And then there's probably many that I'm not. So it's been super neat to be a part of that. Definitely a vulnerable art form.
For sure. I mean, I saw your performance at Segerstrom two different years. One was a massive production last year where I think you had hundreds of people on the stage at the same time.
Yeah. And
you had a Jesus figure wandering around, interfacing with all the people. I mean, it was so powerful.
Yeah, you're always trying to find ways to connect. And I found that's when we're talking about vulnerability, we're vulnerable in a lot of different ways, and we're vulnerable to a lot of bad influences these days too, right? So we're always trying to find ways to reach people in a world where I feel like walls are going up and being torn down. All the right and wrong walls are being thrown up and torn down constantly, to where we're exposed or not exposed to the wrong or right things. It's very confusing. If what I just said made no sense, it's because it doesn't make any sense. And I just feel like our job then on the back end is to say, where's the world today on October blank? Where is the world? And what do the people need to hear for this particular set of shows that we're doing? And we felt the one that you're mentioning, we felt that it needed to be a little bit more literal, to the point that we had, like you said, a savior actor on the stage. And it was super, again, vulnerable, but also poignant and effective for the audience, but especially for the participants. I would say more so for the participants who got to have that opportunity. So yeah, that was a unique one. We don't normally go to that extent theatrically, but we just felt that it was needed. We needed to, sometimes you need a slap in the face, proverbially. And I guess that was our way of just saying, hey, remember that this loving Savior still exists, and he wants to reach out to you and heal you and tear down that wall, and I think it worked. We were pleased with it.
Yeah, I know, it was really powerful. And in fact, just now with what's happening in the world, what's happened recently with this assassination here at UVU, I mean, people are really coming back to Jesus Christ. I mean, it seems like almost a revival with what just happened, and music is a big piece of that.
It is. We see a revival in every rehearsal, but definitely in every concert series that we perform. That's a perfect word for it, Mary Alice, the revival concept. And the derivative of that, of course, is that it revives, right? It reminds us and revives in us feelings that I think are in us from the pre-existence. I personally believe that music, there was one church leader of mine that said one time, music is part of the language of the gods. And I love that concept. Like it is a language that we spoke or sang in praise well before this earth life. And so it's just in us, and it revives that feeling in us and that connection to the pre-earth life and the afterlife and a whole grand circle of things. So
definitely. It is a universal language. I mean, you can go anywhere in the world and you hear beautiful music. Sometimes I've heard operas in different languages. I don't even understand what they're saying, but it's so powerful. You can feel the message of what they're saying. You feel the emotion of what they're singing. It's powerful.
You're preaching to the choir.
And you have quite a choir. I mean, with parents volunteering, you've got orchestra donating time, you've got guest artists like Gentry joining in. I mean, MCO seems to thrive on community. I mean, what role has our church community played in the growth of MCO? You have a lot of volunteers.
Huge. So many don't know that at this point, except the ones who are around from the very beginning, that the entire premise of Millennial Choirs and Orchestras began because I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It began with the sole purpose of trying to build music in the local areas of the LDS church. And that started to expand to just building music in churches in general. We saw this kind of decline in music in at least Christian churches, the ones we're aware of. We saw this decline happening, which made us really sad because music is such an integral part of our worship, and it has been, it should continue to be. And certainly in the LDS church, that was happening as well. And so our whole goal was to just provide something better, that people could reconnect again, and then hopefully go out and make a difference in their local congregations. And so it's a huge portion of our participation remains and continues to be LDS people, but it's also an all faiths organization. So we have people of all faiths gathering together. And I think what they've realized, people from other faiths, I know, because I've spoken to many of them, and many of them will write in or come and talk to us after rehearsals or concerts and just say they're just proud to be a part of something that the LDS people kind of took the bull by the horns and made it happen. And I don't apologize I'm very unapologetic about the fact that many of us are LDS. Most of us are LDS. We should be doing this. Of all of the denominations in the world, the LDS people are literally singing from the womb. We grow up with this more than any other denomination that I know of. We should
Primary.
we should be the ones leading the way with great music. And we have it modeled at the top with the Tabernacle Choir.
Right.
It's modeled for ever now, for almost 2 centuries. And so it's just it's great to be able to provide that and have an opportunity for that in the local areas that we're, at least where we are now. We can't be everywhere.
It's true. I mean, it's interesting what you're saying. It's true. Since the time we were little children, we were singing primary songs at the age of 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned all the books of scripture through a primary song. I mean, it's just like learned who all the prophets were through a primary song. I mean, it's a great learning tool too. So
it's not exclusive to LDS people, the whole singing as children, but I don't know of any other church, and I've got a lot of friends of other faiths. I don't know of any other denomination that does it to the extent, the singing times that we have every single Sunday, just the songbook that we grew up with alone, the thickness of that book and how many songs are in it. And I bet if you went through, most of us know 90% of those songs. You get through a lot of music every year as a child in the church. And so again, I'll say it again, we should be the ones that are leading the charge here. And then we should also be the ones saying, come one, come all, come join us. We do what we do well and we love what we do. Come be a part of it. And that's exciting to see people kind of jump on that bandwagon.
It's a good interfaith opportunity, honestly, because people can unite on music.
Absolutely. It is the perfect way to do it. It's like you said it earlier. Again, it seems so cliche to say, but music is the universal language.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the vulnerability thing. It's because it goes straight to the heart. It cuts through all the onion layers, and all the challenging things, the way we look, where we're from, what we believe, and it just goes straight to the heart. I used to say to the MCO participants, I don't know that there's anything quite like music, sacred music, that can cut straight through, like pierce straight through to the heart. And just, it's like, you know what it is, Mary Alice? I feel like it is an injection of testimony. It's like just, like straight to the blood veins with just pure testimony. And I don't think that there's anything else that can, this is this is maybe controversial, but I don't think there's much else that can do that. I know that we talk about prayer and the importance of prayer, and I get that. But we also believe in the Latter-day Saint culture that the song of the righteous is a prayer. Not like
Absolutely.
a prayer, but that it is a prayer. And so
Right.
I believe that prayer in music, which is sacred music, I don't think there's any other way. I don't think there's any way as powerful to just give an immediate injection of spirit and connection to the gods, to our.
I agree. It is totally a form of worship. I mean, I feel the spirit more through music than anything else, honestly. Dallin Bayless was on the High Council, and he came and spoke at my daughter's ward in Orem, and I was visiting, so I went with her. And he gave a good talk. Honestly, I don't remember what it was about, but he sang after, and he sang this beautiful song, basically singing his testimony. And it just pierced me to the soul. I mean, I just felt, I was weeping. I mean, and everyone around me was crying. I mean, it's so powerful. And I went up to him after, and I knew him from our days in Boston. He was back in Boston for a while. I just said, you didn't even need to give the talk. You
Right.
could have just sung the song. I mean,
And knowing Dallin, he would not be offended by saying, I don't remember what you said. All I know is what you sang. He would agree. He's a musician and a good one. So absolutely.
He is insanely talented. So, but it's interesting because our church culture often leans towards traditional music style. And how can we kind of strike the balance between embracing evolving styles and staying anchored in the doctrine and sacred purpose of music as our church grows? I mean, we're a global church now. We're embracing a variety of cultures throughout Africa and South America. How can we, kind of lean towards?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and it's challenging. Yeah. I think I would preface this with saying that I acknowledge and understand how impossible the task is that the church has of doing exactly what you just asked, embracing all of the cultures, trying to find a way to make it relatable to everybody. I don't think it's possible. I actually don't think there's one answer for how that's possible. But I do want to go to, so I acknowledge how challenging that is. And I also acknowledge that the church is working at it, but I just don't think there's a good answer for it. So I don't think we're ever going to make everybody happy totally, especially the musicians of the church. Because I just don't know that there's a great solution to it. It's just a challenge. Like you said, we're a worldwide organization with a lot of cultures. A lot of people ask that question and they mention exactly what you mentioned, which is Africa, South America, Polynesia, all the different cultures that are not, the United States of America,
Right.
The interesting thing to me is I'm just as concerned, Mary Alice, about the cultures and the different generations that we're not appealing to in the United States of America as I am outside of America. I think that one of the greatest challenges that we have isn't trying to find music that's going to speak to the African Latter-day Saint, but music that's going to speak to the 23-year-old Latter-day Saint in Utah or in California or in Texas or wherever in the United States. So we've got a challenge here at home just as much as we do throughout the world. And I'll just take you to Texas for a minute. That's where I live. I've had the opportunity to go to several different denominations because I have a lot of kids. And my kids have friends, and most of their friends are from other denominations. And so there'll be a baptism here or there, some special event in one of these other churches. And so we'll go and we'll support. One of the first times that I did it when we had moved here was at the local Baptist church in my town. And I live in a small town, but most of the town attends this Baptist church. And so we went there, and it was such an interesting experience. From the time I walked in the doors, I realized that music was an integral part of their entire worship service. Mm-hmm. Every time they sang, they were on their feet. Every single time they sang. They never sat while they sang. And I thought that was interesting. By the way, I just was in New York City, and I told my wife, I want to attend Mass on Sunday. The funny thing is she kind of looked at me. She goes, Mass? I said, yeah, I want to go to Mass. I said, does that concern you? And she said, well, if you said that every week, it might concern me. But yeah, I'm down with going to Mass today. So we went to Mass, and I wanted to go to the Mass that was like their Missa Solemnis, like their main Mass that Sunday morning with the professional choir, and they were singing polyphonic music, like ancient music. And it was just cool. And I'm a nerd with that. So I was just loving it. But very similarly in that church, every time the congregation sang, they were on their feet. Every time, without a doubt. And I think that's probably standard in a lot of congregations and a lot of denominations. But back to this Baptist church in Texas, it was a wonderful experience. We were always standing, no hymn books. There were no one's looking at a hymn book. The words were up on 2 screens, and that's how most of the churches these days, Christian churches, are doing it. And so there's no music, there's no stabs and music, notation. And because let's be honest, even in the LDS church where we promote, music learning and lessons, to be able to actually read music and to go, that melody line is doing this and that note is an F and it's no one's thinking that way. You're hearing what the organ's playing and you're copying it we're using our ears and we're doing it that way. Even people who've played piano growing up they don't know how to sight read very well, So I just am watching it going, I think there's just some simple things that we probably could do a little bit differently in the culture that don't have anything to do with the music itself. I think you can throw this little light of mine into the new hymn book and say, okay, we're reaching a culture of the African-American spiritual. I don't know that that's going to make the difference. It's the way that we do it that makes more of the difference. I think other cultures can totally embrace Come Ye Saints, and we thank thee, O God, for a prophet. And it can be, or I am a child of God, and it can be exceedingly meaningful to them just as much as those of us in America where the hymns were written. I think it's the way that we do it. And that's huge for me right now. And I'm looking at that going, we have an opportunity with all of these new hymns. But again, a lot of them are being delivered in the same traditional style you mentioned. They're being delivered in a style that literally came from box chorales from, the late early 1700s. So we're talking 300-year-old style that we are still handing church members with the 4-part hymn, very, very traditional, very conservative 4-part hymn style. And I think that's great. That doesn't even matter to me so much as how are we doing it? Can we get on our feet? Can we put words up and get out of the books and really be a part of this, of this experience? And I would love to see more of that. But, I mean, we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, that's, to me, the short answer after a very long explanation is we need to be more concerned, I think, about the way that we're praising than exactly what the music is. I think good music inherently can be loved by any culture, but the way that you do it can seem very foreign. Our young adults they do not connect right now with the choral 4-part hymn singing, look at your hymn book idea. That's very foreign to them. And so I'm watching them check out during the singing of the hymns, and that makes me sad. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, that is tricky. I mean, that is a generation who was raised a little differently too. So, I mean, I remember Gladys Knight. Do you remember a few years ago, she went on this tour and she really invoked the gospel spirit into these songs and it was singing them in a very different way than we normally sing them. Yeah. She was just kind of on a mission to kind of change that up a little bit. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. And in a totally different style than Gladys Knight. Are you familiar with the artist Forrest Frank?
Yes. Oh, I love him.
He's kind of a big deal right now but he's doing the same thing. That to me is part of the proof that it's not necessarily the song. Forrest Frank could take the most boring hymn you've ever heard in your life, but obviously doctrinally rich, right? These hymns are so rich with doctrine. He could take the most boring hymn that's 300 years old and do it in Forrest Frank style, and pretty soon it's a #1 hit on the Christian charts. Because he's doing it in a way that's connecting with the young people. And interestingly enough, Mary Alice, we keep talking about the young people, but it's connecting with us too. That's the thing. Gladys Knight, even the adults, we loved what was happening. We were like, yes, thank you. This is what. So it's not just the young people. We live in it. We're being exposed to it too. We all listen. We all hear the radio. We all know who the artists are. Right. We're keeping up with our kids and our grandkids. We know what's going on, and so it speaks to our souls as well. It's a changing world. So the church has to change with it, and it's tricky though. I get it.
I think the church is starting to wrap their head around that too, because they're doing these big youth conferences, and they're having One Republic, and they're having all these singers come. I mean, of course, they have to sign waivers that everything's going to be clean, but they're trying to tap into this generation and bring them in through music that they like.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's interesting. It's changing up.
Not to get too controversial, but the church has, it's almost adopted a if you can't beat them, join them philosophy, as long as it's clean. I love that you mentioned that. Yeah, we're not trying to embrace a pop culture that's inappropriate or that doesn't, align with our doctrine or any of that. But there was a day and age where you had apostles, literally, just in the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, talking about, pop music influences in sacred music being wrong and being, driving away the spirit. And now we're actually presenting youth programs with that exact type of music that apostles were kind of denouncing only decades ago. So I do see a lot of progress in that with the church. I see them saying, I know that seems calloused to say, if you can't beat them, join them. But in a way, they're saying, look, it's time for us to realize that this kind of change is okay. And that you can understand and love and even preach doctrine in a musical style that isn't the traditional one that we had, for so many decades in our church.
Yeah. And connect with them in the way that they connect. Like Forrest Frank is great. It's kind of like R&B beats, but it's everything he's saying is Jesus, uplifting, empowering. I love his music. I listen to it all the time. And I'm 55.
I know. He even goes into topics of, he alludes to whether he's speaking of him or just speaking as, as kind of a storyteller and giving a scenario. He'll speak of a time when someone's, been wrapped up in pornography or someone's been wrapped up in just, he doesn't use those words, but he uses lyrics that talk about like, I was in, just drenched in sin or a sinful life. And then I found Jesus and here's how it made me feel different. I'm grossly paraphrasing one of his songs that I'm thinking of, but my goodness, I sat there listening to it going, wow, he's nailed this. He's nailed the transparency and the honesty and just this need that all of us have desperately for Jesus to save and to heal. And it's brilliant. He's doing it in a brilliant way. And there's others besides him. There's others as well. I don't know how you put that into church music. I don't know how you bring that into our sacrament meetings. I recognize that the church likes to have a box on that kind of a thing because it's a very sacred meeting. And I don't think there's an answer. I wish there was. I don't know. It could get very unprofessional and very corny, and it could turn into it's different than a church who has a professional band coming in and performing, and they've practiced and rehearsed and they're quality and good. Our lay membership kind of runs the meetings, and I see how that could get very tricky. And so I acknowledge that there needs to be some guidelines.
I think that's a certain audience, right? Like the Forrest Franks of the world, like that's a good youth audience. It's kind of like the same place EFY music has, those EFY recordings. It's kind of in that same category. They're not necessarily going to sing a lot of those in church, but I do like the formality of having good classic music in a church congregation. And I like the idea of standing up. I wish we would stand up more. I really like that. When we stand up, I feel emboldened. I feel so much more connected.
And I get my head out of the book, and I'm looking up. So again, we just went to a general conference. I took my family to, I've got several kids up in Utah now. And so we brought the family, did the whole general conference thing. And we did I love going to Sunday morning because I get to go to music and spoken word and then the session. Yeah. But it was so interesting. Every time we sing as a congregation, what do you do in general conference? You
Standing
stand.
Up.
Everyone
stands.
It. And by the way, there's no hymn books there because that would be too many hymn books. So they have the words where? On the screens. Literally in our general conference of the church, we are doing it like the Baptists. We are standing and the words are on the screens. And I thought, wow, why can't we do this in our sacrament meetings? If there's just you'd have to switch some audio visual situations and spend some money, but it would be, I think it could really, in other words, Mary Alice, I think my answer to how can we make it work is not so much about different cultures. I think in different areas, they'll interpret it the way they interpret it and they'll infuse their styles. And I think that's wonderful. They're little fixes like that. Let's get on our feet. Let's get some words on screens. Let's get out of the books. Let's, or let's find ways to better teach these new hymns. Have you?
Yeah.
Do you remember the 1985 hymn book? Was it church-wide or was it just in my stake that we had, we learned the hymns during Sunday school? The first part of Sunday school was dedicated to learning a new hymn every week in that new hymn book.
I don't remember doing that, honestly.
We did it in our stake. And I was a boy, and in 1985, I lived in Idaho Falls. In 1986, we moved to California, and in both stakes, they did it. At the end of sacrament meeting, for 10 minutes, for months, we would learn one of the new hymns and actually have like a musician would stand up at the pulpit and teach, and we'd go through it several times and learn it. And I'm thinking, oh man, we could, if we did just even a little bit of that once these new hymns are all released, that would be cool to repeat that, because that's what made us learn new hymns like Lord, I Would Follow Thee, and Because I Have Been Given Much. Those became beloved hymns because we learned them. So anyway, there's little things.
It's true. Like in my Provo ward here, it's so great because every Sunday after the closing prayer, we sing one of those new hymns so we can learn them.
You are doing it. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm learning a lot of these new hymns, and some of them I've actually heard before, and they're powerful. They're so good. I love it. So, I mean, how is kind of leading MCO? You've done this now 18 years. Mm-hmm. So how has this strengthened your own testimony of Christ?
Oh, my goodness. We've already talked a lot about kind of music being this language of, bearing testimony and searing testimony into our hearts. And I think that's what it's done for me. I have a very, very interesting, I'll share one experience, just the most recent one, and it kind of encapsulates my entire experience. I have to, as a conductor and especially as a composer, my brother and me do the bulk of the composing for the music in MCO and the arranging. And you have to kind of put up kind of walls emotionally, because music's so emotional and it's your pet project, each time. And it's just this thing. So you kind of put up these emotional barriers and just I'm not going to feel. I got to teach the music. I got to teach the singers and the instrumentalists. This needs to be professional. I've got my list of things that we have to work on, and it is rehearsal mode, and it is that kind of thing. And so you just kind of subconsciously tell yourself you're not going to feel. So at the end of 18, whatever it was, shows, the one that you saw, the Messiah in America, and I had composed that work. And at the end of it, and my brother and me were conductors in every single concert throughout the 7 states. And we went around, toured around, and did all of this. The very, very last one, I think it was California. I think California was the final concert. I believe that's true. Anyway, we were there at Segerstrom. And I remember I finished the final chord, cut the choir off, the orchestra off. I dropped the baton onto the stand, and I wasn't thinking. I hadn't planned it ahead of time. It was nothing. I just remember thinking, we're finished. It's done. And I just started bawling, like baby bawling, like just child bawling. And it was only 3 seconds. And I looked up at the one of the string players sitting right in front of me, and they were giving me this look like the encore. We had a planned kind of encore for the people to bow, right? And so they go the encore, and I went, oh my gosh. And I wiped the tears away, and I grabbed my baton and I start the encore. And, that breakdown, what I analyzed it, kind of psychologically analyzed it later and emotionally analyzed it. And it wasn't just that it was this huge project that had been going on for 2 years that was finally finished. It was, I was finally able to allow myself to feel everything I had been hearing that everyone else was feeling, that I wasn't. I had shut it off for that long. Like, I had little experiences in the composing process and different things that were super tender and super spiritual. But as far as the performances and all of it, and I can't even tell you, I told the participants when I came back this semester about that experience. And I said, I remember feeling like that is enough to get me through another 20 years. If it were that alone and no other spiritual experiences, it's enough to get me through another 20 years. And wow. I just love that. I love that we're, and music's not the only way. Some of us just have these experiences hearing a talk, or whatever. But I love that the Lord just knows what to give us. And I think for a lot of us, back to the NCO and the music, I think for a lot of us, he knows he's going to do it through music. He knows that we're going to best listen to him and best hear through music. And so he just gives us an experience and a little dose, little injection here and there. And it's enough to just get you through. And I love that. So I've had several of those throughout the 18 years where it's just like, I can't deny it. It was just right from the Lord, just what I needed. So that was one of the most recent ones.
That's amazing. I mean, music is rolled into everything in the Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints. I mean, even in his second coming, choirs of angels will be singing. I mean, that is telling you, I mean, music is integral to everything about the Church of Jesus Christ. I mean, the Tabernacle Choir is a perfect example of that. Their influence and their notoriety worldwide is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And to see the resources that are put into that organization alone. I mean, what church does that, right? And it's been doing it since, what is it, 1850 or whatever was the origins of that choir. It's incredible. It is a perfect example why, it is a perfect way to know how much the church places emphasis on it. And I was going to speak also to what you were saying before about the second coming and all of it. I often will tell, and this is so self-serving that I even say this because this is my career and this is my thing and this is what I love, but I'm going to say it anyways. There's so much about the pre-existence and about our existence after this life that we do not know. There's just we know probably 0.01% of what really went on. We don't know what we're really going to be doing in the next life as far as details are concerned. We have kind of the macro view, right? The aerial view of what what we will be doing. We don't know what it'll look like or feel like. We don't know much. We have never been told that we'll be playing soccer or skiing down a beautiful mountain slope. We've never been told that we'll be eating. We never, I'm thinking of all the things that I love to do, like I love food. I love skiing. I love all these types of things. We don't know any of that, but we do know there will be music and we do know there will be singing and we do know there will be instruments and that there will be playing. And I love that. I love to be a part of something on earth and to have something that I can offer to other people that they can be a part of that we know we'll take with us. There's so little we know we'll take with us, but that we know we will. And so I always love to say that I hope I'm singing in those millennial choirs at the not ours.
You might be leading it.
But I don't want to be leading it. That's what I always tell everybody. I don't want to be in charge and I don't want to be leading it. I want to be singing in I want my tenor voice back because it's gone now. And I want to be singing in the tenor section of those millennial choirs when Christ comes again and then beyond in the millennium. I think that will be glorious. But I love that we're able to provide and that our church puts emphasis on it so that the members of this church are able to kind of have a head start. I think we will be all part of those choirs and leading the charge. And I just love that. It's great to be a part. Thank you so
much. That is a beautiful testimony to close with. We'll close with that. Thank you so much for really consecrating your time and talents, everything the Lord has given you to inspire all of us. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank the Lord. It was inspired by him and I can't deny that either. And we love what we do and we love people. I love the people. So many people out there with stories that just need to be told and need to be heard, but they're experiencing and getting through all of it with great opportunities like MCO and all of the spiritual opportunities that the gospel provides them, the church. I just love it.
It's great. Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for being with me today. I loved our interview.
Thanks so much.
This is the What Now Podcast.